Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Bailey?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hi, Phil.
Hi.
I'm gonna try to figure out how to get my other monitor up.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Nice. Okay. And it's working.
Hi. Cool. It's like 5 after, so I feel like most people who have joined have probably joined already. So if we want to start off, my name is Bailey Collins, and I'm the project manager for Yellowstone-Teton Clean Cities. And so for the webinar today, we're going to be hearing from Sandy with Stio, and he's going to talk about the brand's work towards being more sustainable and just their future plans regarding sustainable production. And then we're also going to hear from Aaron with Sustainable Apparel Coalition, just about ways to make clothing companies more sustainable and how to assess overall environmental impacts. And then we'll go over questions at the end if anyone has any questions. So if you have a question, just please type it in the chat box and I can read through them after the presentations and we can answer those questions for you. But we will start off with Sandy presenting. So whenever you are ready to share your screen, Sandy, I think we're ready.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Bailey, for the introduction. As Bailey mentioned, I'm over at Stio. I work in the product development team as the materials manager, and I've been in that role with Stio for about 1.5 years now. Before that, I was with Burton Snowboards in Vermont, and then Cornell University, where I studied fiber science and apparel design. And before I went to graduate school for that, I was actually in Jackson. I came up here in college first, working for Wilderness Ventures as the trip leader, and then worked out at the Village as a ski instructor and raft guide in the summer. So happy to be back in the Valley, and yeah, excited to share a little bit about what Stio's doing to be more sustainable in our clothing production. Specifically today, as the materials manager, I'm going to talk about our material sourcing. So let me try sharing the screen here. Do you maybe just want to give me a thumbs up, Bailey, once it's sharing? Perfect. All right, great. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about Stio. I think we've got a bunch of locals here, so this may be covering what you already know. But Stio was founded in 2011 by Steve Sullivan, and currently we have about 50 employees in Teton County. We're a high growth company. We're direct to consumer. So that means most of our business we're selling off of our website and not through retail stores. But we're really proud to call Jackson home. And a lot of our product development, we're inspired by the Tetons. We get to product test here. There's no better place, I can tell you, to take out a new sample jack and see if it's working than hiking up the pass in the morning. So within Stio's mission, vision, values, we state that we're stewards of the mountain life. And what that means, to me at least, is that, we're always trying to, at our very core, protect the places that we play. In product development, that means that we're always trying to build the highest quality product that's going to last. We don't want to make apparel that you wear 5 or 6 times and it breaks. The longer that we can keep consumers wearing the product, the more sustainable the product is. Also, in the last 2 years at Stio, we've really put a focus on moving to preferred materials. And I'm going to talk quite a bit more about that, but these are materials that have a lower environmental impact. So when we're looking at, recycled, organic materials, those are certainly considered preferred. One of my other roles at Stio right now started about 1 year ago. We have a employee grassroots effort called the Stewardship Council, and we have 6 employees from throughout the company. And we come up with ideas. We identified areas of impact within Stio, and these are both environmental and social. We came up with initiatives to address these areas of impact, and then we prioritize them to set goals of how can we start working towards these. So we're just coming up on our 1st year anniversary, but it's been a really awesome project for me to be a part of. And it's been really cool at Stio that we've had incredible buy-in from our senior team and the management at Stio. So we're not trying to wrestle them to say, we really want to make this move to organic cotton. They're saying, you know, they're asking us to come with the proposal of why we're doing it, and then have been very accepting of that. So to really understand what Stio's greatest impacts are, most of them, just so you know, are not in Teton County. It's within our value chain, it's in the supply chain. So to really understand this, I first want to talk a little bit about the basic life cycle process in the apparel industry. So in this chart, you'll see, this is pretty similar for most global manufacturing. We, Stio, would live in the center of this where the t-shirt and the pants are. But if we're making product, we have to first think about the raw material, and that's in the top left. What are we making it out of? Where's that material coming from? As we go around, then the material will be shipped to a factory where they're going to cut it and sew it into garments. And then once we ship it to consumers, they're going to use it and continually wash it and wear it. And then when they're finished with it, they have to think about how it's going to be disposed. Throughout this process, there's numerous inputs and outputs. So you'll see on the left, we have the inputs of water, energy, and chemicals. And on the output side, we have CO2 emissions, waste, and co-products. And co-products would be, you know, if we're sourcing wool or down, we're very considerate as well of the sheep and the geese or ducks. So if we're looking at this, a takeaway is just that inherently there are these inputs and outputs. And when we're at Stio designing a new product, we want to be mindful of these inputs, not just the end use of the final garment. So again, it's our job to look at this and try to, anywhere along the way, minimize what our impact is going to be. Oops, jumped ahead. So this next slide I'm going to look at here, this is a slide from Nike. And what's really cool is that right now in the apparel industry, there's a lot of collaboration going on. It's not so much siloed in business secrets that they're hanging on to. So this is a slide from Nike's production in the year 2015, but they did a full life cycle assessment of their company to understand what the proportional environmental impacts were at each stage of the value chain. So that's what you see on the left. And then coming across the bottom is what we just talked about. So there's, you know, the corporate offices, there's raw materials, there's the manufacturing of them into apparel. Logistics is actually shipping the product to the retail stores or the consumer, and then the consumer use and the end of life. And, you know, why am I showing you this one from Nike? You'd say, you know, it's a much bigger company than Stio and they're in footwear and equipment. But really, if you're manufacturing, this is pretty similar across, you know, other brands. If you're North Face or Patagonia, Stio, it likely looks pretty similar to this. And we've taken this, you know, as a stewardship council to understand what our impacts look like. So again, today I'm mostly going to talk about raw materials as the material manager. That also coincides as the largest single impact. And if you look at reports out there, other life cycle assessments, materials can represent up to 70 to 80% of the impact in apparel, just the raw materials. And you can see here, it's a large user of water. You need water to dye and finish. You need water to grow cotton. There's energy, you know, a huge amount of energy would go into picking cotton and shipping it, or in polyester or nylons, the petroleum is actually the base of that fiber. And then CO2 emissions. Again, when you're making this, there's inherently emissions. So since there's a huge impact in raw materials, that's where I'm going to focus today. Stio is also doing as much as we can at our corporate headquarters. So we use wind power from Lower Valley. We're also doing as much recycling there as possible. In our manufacturing, we're partnering with suppliers that we know are doing everything they can on a social and environmental side. And then logistics, we try to sea freight everything. The impact of shipping by sea is much lower. We don't have a lot of retail stores, which is good for us, but you know, consumer use, it gets out of Stio's hands, but we're trying to do everything we can to educate our consumers on how to better care for their products. So that includes, you know, how to wash it, when you need to wash it. And then end of life is something that we're currently in discussions about quite a bit as well, is what to do with product when people are finished using it. And so it's not official yet, but we're coming out with a press release soon that Stio is partnering with a group called the Renewal Workshop, and they're based out of Oregon. And they'll actually take product and they will reuse it, right? So they're able to wash it, repair it in any way possible, and then you can actually purchase off of their website once they've repaired it. If it's beyond repair, they're also able to cut it up into component parts and then recycle those materials individually. So we're really excited about that partnership and look out for that from Stio in the next month here. All right, so I'm going to dive in a little bit more now on the raw materials, again, because that's what my focus at Stio is. So the first thing we have to think about is what materials does Stio use? So when I first joined Stio, again, last spring, I did an inventory and I looked back at our purchase orders from the year prior and broke down what we were actually using. So, and I did that again this year. We use about 100,000 kilograms of raw material each year. That breaks into 48% polyester, 25% cotton, 23% nylon, 3% down, 1% wool, and less than 1% spandex. And now this is by weight, so this is kilograms. And so a material like down would be, it'd take up a huge amount of space, but it's very lightweight. So that's why it's represented pretty small here. But what's really interesting about this graph is if you look at the poly, cotton, and nylon, those three materials make up 96% of the raw material that we use. So when we're looking at preferred materials and how to reduce our impact, we really target those three. Where you might find that within like our product at Stio could be cotton is in our woven pants and shirts. You see it in t-shirts and hoodies. Polyester is often in our fleeces. It has that nice soft hand. It'd be in technical wovens, so technical pants and shirts, and also performance knits. Nylon is used as a little bit more durable fabric, so we use that in our downproof fabrics. It's also in our hard shells and our soft shells for technical, like ski wear. And then not on this slide, wool. We use wool in our base layers, which is great. That being said, there's environmental impacts and issues with each of these materials. So conventionally grown cotton, while it's easy to recycle and it's biodegradable, when you grow it, it relies extensively on synthetic fertilizers and soil additives. There's pesticides and GMO seeds that promote cotton yields, but it's super water intensive. And so there's unintended side effects on both the soil and then air quality too in the farming practices. Synthetic fibers like poly and nylon, they rely on petroleum as a base. And so these manufacturing processes, they're very energy intensive. They also emit quite a bit of CO2 as we talked about earlier. And then down, increasingly so, we're concerned about how animals are treated within the supply chain. And traditional down, it's very hard to figure out where it came from. It's a byproduct of the meat industry. So as Stio, when we're buying down, you actually watch the prices fluctuate with how people are buying duck or geese as a meat. But really our concern is, were these birds ethically raised? How were they treated? And the biggest issues there right now are force feeding and then live plucking. So we really want to make sure that that's not occurring with the down that we're purchasing. So what are the alternatives? Thankfully, there's quite a few. And right now, with improved environmental impacts, right now Stio has a focus on converting towards organic cotton and recycled poly and nylon. And then we're actually, since we started, have been using 100% responsibly sourced down. These materials, the benefits of organic cotton is that it can actually promote healthy soil and biodiversity, and it requires less water to produce. So life cycle assessment data suggests that it can actually reduce blue water consumption by 87% and reduce energy demand by 62% and global warming potential by 45% compared to conventional cotton. So we know that when we're moving a program from conventional cotton to organic, there are these benefits. So just in terms, I have a stat here as well. Like an average t-shirt would take 2,000 gallons of water to produce, and that's all the way through the supply chain. By comparison, an organic cotton t-shirt would take less than 300 gallons. So it's almost a factor of 10 right there. Recycled polyester and nylon, again, it's diverting waste from landfills if we're using, and so they're melting down plastic water bottles or fishing nets and turning that into a new fiber that we can use. So it also requires less energy and less water. And then with responsible down, the certification is by a third party, and they can verify they can trace all the way back to the farm that the goose came from, that the feathers came from. They can actually, I guess, even go all the way back to the egg that the bird was hatched out of. So they have great transparency into the supply chain, and then they guarantee that there's no mistreatment of the animals along the way. And if you look at a Stio product with this 100% responsibly sourced down, every down jacket will have on the back of the hang tag has a little code, and you can even go on to their website, Track My Down, and learn all about where your down came from. So that's a pretty cool way that we have this visibility into the supply chain. So how is Stio prioritizing these changes, right? And where are we at? So currently our best tool is benchmarking. So again, I mentioned when I started a year ago, we did a first benchmark. And when we did that, it was based on all the materials we bought in the year 2018. And out of that, there were 9% preferred and renewable by weight. And that was in our recycled insulation, in our turpin fleece, and our Azurk jacket. And so that was pretty eye-opening for us as a company. We stand behind our product, we say we're doing the right thing. And then when we looked at our materials, we realized instantly that we could be doing more. And so across, the industry average is maybe 15 to 20%, and we were sitting at 10. So we really put an effort behind it in the last year. And you can see on this chart, looking across, that we've made pretty good strides. We're up to about 32% preferred materials. And what we had done was target hotspots. So we looked at what's our best-selling cotton woven program, what's our best-selling nylon program.
Stio is trying to be more responsible.
And those were the ones we went after. So what are the challenges of this, though? It's really not easy to move everything to the preferred materials. As a brand, there's a lot of considerations. Number one for us is high quality and durable product. And if we can't meet the same quality standard with a preferred material, we're not ready to sacrifice product durability for the sustainability. That being said, there's increasingly more options out there. But if you look across, take polyester as an example, there may be 300 different types of polyester yarn that we could weave or knit into a fabric. Of those, there may only be 30 that are available in recycled content. So we have to be a little bit, we have to work within our supply chain and work with our partners who actually weave the fabric and have them, help source the recycled content, and then we make the test fabric. And if it's not meeting our quality standard, we have to go back to square one. So it gets a little bit more expensive, and we just need to, work within our company. We work, straight from the designer all the way through our marketing team to find these areas that we can make updates going forward. So what's next for us? We've identified that the greatest impact for us right now is in raw materials in the manufacturing, and we're going to continue to reduce our impact through uptake of preferred materials. We're going to continue utilizing benchmarking as a tool, but what we really want to do next is find a way to more accurately measure the water, the energy, the greenhouse gases, and the waste that come along with the materials that we're making. Once we can more accurately measure that and quantify it, then we think that we'll be able to reduce more. The other thing we want to do is set targets for reduction and then actually publicly make commitments to those. So, we're only a year and a half into our benchmarking, but we're hoping that by next spring, we'll be able to, project that forward and say, by what date are we going to be 50%? By what date do we hope to be 100% preferred materials? And that's something that we're working towards. We don't have that public commitment just yet. So once we, reduce our impact as far as possible, then we'll look into other ways that we can potentially offset our impact, whether that's through carbon offsets or, new manufacturing processes. So yeah, that's a little bit glimpse into what we're working on over at Stio right now. So happy to pass it on to Aaron, who's going to talk a little bit about the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. Thanks. You have to figure out how to stop presenting.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. All right, so let me see. Let me make sure my screen's sharing correctly because I'm trying out the dual screen right now. 1 second. You guys see this?
I can't see your screen right now. No, I don't think.
One sec. Try this one more time. All right, can you see that picture?
Yeah, I think it's loading right now, but it says you're sharing your screen.
Can you see, what does it look like right now?
Yeah, it's like a picture of a grassy field.
Okay, cool. Let me start this. Awesome. Okay, can you see this purple thread?
No? Yes.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool. Whew. Hi guys, it's nice here today. My story is similar to Sandy's. I used to live in Jackson after college, and I worked for Phil Cameron at Energy Conservation Works and also with Alicia. So that was back in 2013 and 14 and 15, I think. But it's good to be back. I went to grad school in the interim, and now I live in San Francisco. So it's nice to be back in the Jackson community. So right now I work for an organization called the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what we do and how we help move the industry towards the apparel industry and textile industry towards a more sustainable future. So I'll go ahead and jump in, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them in on the side in the chat, and then we'll have some QA time at the end to go over them. All right, here we go. Okay, so as I said, we'll be kind of going over what the Sustainable Apparel, the SAC does, what our coalition does, and then I'll go over an overview of the Higg Index, which is the tools that we create to actually help companies and organizations measure their sustainability programs, and then we'll do a little QA. So first, I'd like to start with how we began. So in 2009, two companies, Patagonia and Walmart, came together and had basically said, we have a radical mission to bring together competitors and peers across the apparel, footwear, and textile sector. And together we can create a common and comparable approach to how we measure sustainability performance. This was a unique partnership that had not been done before. And so out of this partnership grew our organization, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. They had a vision of creating an industry that produces no unnecessary environmental harm and has a positive effect on all of those connected to it. So this was really created to develop an industry-wide method to measure and develop really metrics to help change the industry moving forward and increase communication and transparency throughout various stakeholders. And so our stakeholders consist of partnerships across the entire value chain. So it's a diverse multi-stakeholder partnership and organization. So it really brings together brands, retailers, academia, government, nonprofits, industry association, manufacturers, facilities, to make sure that everyone has an equal say in defining the key issues that we need to solve to solve for our mission, really. Our membership is across the globe. We have over 250 companies based in 36 different countries that bring various expertise and interesting knowledge bases together. And our team actually, if I can change the slide here. Our team is based in 7 major cities around the world. Oops. One sec. Computer Zoom pausing. There we go. So our team is based around the world. So Western, Eastern countries, focusing on manufacturers and facilities, and as well as brands and retailers. So we represent brands around the world, and we're constantly working with them to help manage their progress. So some of our brands, this is what a sampling looks like. So it's large and small companies. We work with the Outdoor Industry Association and Sandy has been involved. I think Sandy and I have met at a outdoor retailer show or two. And we work with them to bring together the outdoor industry companies and work with them on the Higg Index as well. And we also have our manufacturers and our affiliates, NGOs, and government entities here. So this also includes service providers. So we have a full range of input that we're constantly receiving to create our tools, which I'll get into in a second. So now into what we actually do and how we do it. So at the core of what all of our members have been working on for the past almost 11 years now in developing the Higg Index, it's really a suite of tools that provide standardized measurement for social and environmental performance at each step along the value chain. We've learned that the only way to drive effective behavior is to collectively work to improve performance. So it's measuring things that matter and with intention. And this standardized approach to measurement allows us to see the challenges and opportunities as a precursor to this collective action that will enable the real impactful change across the entire industry. It's made up of 3 types of tools that together span the entire supply chain. So for facilities, we have our environmental and social and labor modules. For brands and retailers, we have one module that incorporates both environmental and social indicators. And then we have our product tools, which focuses more specifically on the materials and products that Sandy was referring to earlier in terms of getting down to that specificity. So as you can see, the Higg Index, it spans across the entire value chain, and it ensures that at every step of an item's life cycle, from sourcing to retail to production. So we're making sure that there's a way to gather and measure data at every step, and making sure that we can share it. The eventual goal is to share that with value chain partners. So brands and retailers can share with factories and facilities and vice versa. So I'm going to go into some more explanation of how each of these tools work. So I'll start with the materials sustainability index. So this is a custom library of materials for individual organizations. So it really measures the impacts of those specific materials. So these impacts can include eutrophication, water scarcity, global warming, various impacts that each of the materials creates. So here's a sample of what that looks like when you're actually in the weeds here. So there are over 80 base materials. So you can go into the library and create blends and interpret how certain material inputs and manufacturing processes affect impact. So the materials end up with an overall score, and you can compare those to other materials in the library, and they can be toggled to really understand how changing them affects trade-offs with other materials. And so you can choose those 5 impact areas to help determine those. And then in addition to analyzing the scores here for each of these materials, you can evaluate the materials side by side to understand those trade-offs and understand the entire life cycle assessment results, which can be imported into an Excel so that you can use them for internal reports, reporting to leadership to get them on board with your sustainability plan. We want to make them usable so that the scores are meaningful. And for manufacturers, the MSI, this index, provides value that allows those facilities and suppliers to contribute materials. So instead of it just being the brands or retailers that inputs information, the actual factories can input materials and show their materials in the MSI to have them recognized. So it's a two-way street here, and you can design how you would like that, how you would like to work with them, and influence your design team or your purchasing team. And this can all happen while you're mocking up design. So it's a pretty interactive part of our tool. So for brands, it really provides a scalable way to understand the vendor's sustainability efforts. So using the scoring system, you can make more informed, better decisions with your materials, your designers, and compare across the various options. So maintaining that sustainability strategy that's so important right now and always, but increasingly more important. It's a very clear way to track these and really assess your progress. And then in the same vein as the materials index, we also have the product module. So that's actually releasing this year. And it basically will allow users to calculate cradle to gate product footprint for individual products, and understand how to calculate scope 3 emissions and improve the ability to share that data across the entire value chain per product. And so that material sustainability index can feed into the larger product module. And you can see here how the product module will actually cover the entire life cycle impact assessment. And this is a new feature of our tools. We have a 8-person product team, and this is a big release for this year. So next, I'm going to go into the facilities module. So this is where assessments can be completed by facilities or factories, not by brands. So this gives one overall score, including a GHG emission score, and in these seven larger impact categories. So those could correspond with topic sections in the survey itself. So once, for example, this assessment, so that all these questions are posted, a facility or a partner with whom they work can compare data and understand their aggregated scores, and benchmark scores. And these will be anonymous as we move forward. These are anonymous so that there's no competition right now, but it's really to make sure that we're incentivizing the right behavior and moving towards a comparison that's beneficial for everyone. And it really, at the end of the day, it really helps you set goals to understand where you are and how you compare to your peers in the industry. So there's essentially 3 sections of this tool, and I'm going into details here, but feel free to ask questions. There are 3 levels in this facilities tool. So these represent really an increasing level of environmental practices. So as a performance improvement framework, it's really incentivizing improvement across these levels instead of punishing for behavior. So we don't want to say, this is bad, you fail. We want to say, this is where you are and this is how you can improve, instead of taking and reducing your score, so to say. So level 1 is really covering your tracking and awareness. So making sure that your facility is tracking performance and has a good understanding of its impacts, and is monitoring those. Level 2 is more of a baseline and improving performance. It's indicating that the factory is setting targets, has an action plan, and is actually taking the action to reduce impacts. And then level 3 is more of leading practices. These are more aspirational, and really shows the facility's sustainability leadership in making continuous reductions, and demonstrating the industry practices and being a leader across the board for all of these. So that's kind of how improvement is defined: level 1, level 2, level 3 for factories. And then the idea here with these scores, and just to give you a snapshot of what we're working on as far as transparency and performance communication goes, we want to be able to make sure that these can be shown in a clear and consistent way to incentivize behavior, and not be a slap on the wrist and a disincentivizing behavior. So we want to make sure that this data is verified. So all data that's ever communicated, and we still haven't launched communications yet. We're working on this now with advisory councils of companies. But all the data that will be shared in the future will be third-party verified, and it'll connect to this transparency website. And the idea is that you can use these tools to promote transparency across stakeholders. So eventually these tags will be, Amazon, for example, could use this tag to show what their facility scores are on their website, or you could put it on clothing tags. And the idea is that the consumer can be educated to understand what that score means. And so that's the challenge of getting that score to really be indicative of the efforts and adoption that those factories are working on. And this score in the future, it would incorporate our entire suite of tools, not just facility, but facility is a big part of it because, as Sandy mentioned, the supply chain is where the impacts come from. And so that production is it's really important to measure and making sure that that's clearly tracked. And then in the same vein, we have a separate social labor module that we work with a separate organization to really run this. It's called the SLCP, the Social and Labor Organization, and they help us manage this, but it's the same score, it's the same idea as the FEM. It's a bit harder and more tricky to score social indicators. So that's something that we're always working on. Okay, so our third category of tools is the brand and retail module. So moving from facilities, now it's onto brands and retailers that would fill this out. So as most of you know, brands and retailers play a huge role in the long-term success of sustainability practices, and really communicating the value of sustainable fashion to consumers. And consumers are becoming increasingly interested and aware of supporting brands and retailers that are socially transparent and about these practices. And this is meant for businesses of all sizes to help measure their environmental and social impacts. It's more qualitative than the other tools. I've actually been working on this tool over the last year, but the idea is that it's helping provide companies and organizations with information that they can share with their stakeholders and their supply chain partners, and really establish strong practices around the world throughout their entire value chain. So it really assesses everything from well-being of workers in facilities to corporate sustainability strategies to understanding how to work with leadership to present sustainability. So give you that foundation to understand where that improvement lies and how you can invest responsibly in it. These are sort of the high level life cycle stages that we measure. So everything from product development to distribution centers and logistics and operations to use and end of use at the end of its life cycle. And then these are the risks. So in this tool, we want to make sure companies are understanding their risks and impacts. And so they have the ability to select what their risks are. What are their risks and what are their impacts? And this applies to environmental risks and impacts in addition to social and labor risks and impacts. So these are all things that we've aligned with organizations around the world to make sure that, and companies to make sure that these are salient and applicable to multiple companies and that they really cover the whole range. This tool is a little bit more tricky because it is qualitative, and so it has to cover, it has to be as general as possible, but also be meaningful. All right, and then this is just an overview of how the tools actually how you complete the tools and what it looks like. So as a company or as a facility, you will complete the modules and you'll post them, and then you'll share them with your supply chain partners, whether that's other partner brands. So if you're a parent company such as VF, who owns North Face, VF can share their modules with their daughter companies, and then they can also share them with their factories and facilities that are working with FEM. So the various statistics can be shared across. And then at the end, the step 3, and the arguably most important part, is the benchmarking. So understanding where you are in comparison to other companies in the industry, and that's as it relates to size, to employee number, to revenue, and you can see where you are and where you're doing really well or where you're lagging a little bit, and where you need to put your resources in the budget to improve it for next year. And then this is just kind of an overview of kind of bringing it all together here, just understanding the value of the Higg Index for brand partners across brand retailers, manufacturers, and partners across the entire value chain. One thing that we hear constantly from our companies and our organizations is that these tools and the SAC allow for collaboration with peers and encourage those discussions and provide resources really for people to identify those important opportunities that help them move forward and progress and move along their sustainability journey. And it provides them with best practices to understand where they are and make sure that they're covering their risks and really putting their resources in the right places to improve environmental and social and labor sustainability. All right, I think that's it. That's it for my presentation. I'd love to hear if anyone has any questions. Let me look at the chat here to see if anything came in. I see one. Does your organization work with the artisan handmade sector of apparel? That's a good question. We work with some companies that work with artisan handmade sectors, but our member organizations are mostly larger companies, but we do have certain makers and creators of textiles, like by weavers, that help us provide data for the MSI, for example. So if someone is weaving with silk or alpaca, they can provide, we accept data and we go through a very stringent data approval process. We have a gatekeeper who's in charge of making sure the data is correct. But yes, we do use them for lots of inputs as far as materials go. That's a good question. Any other questions for Sandy or I?
I see there was one other for Stio here saying, does Stio do all of its own testing for durability and quality for alternative materials? And I can speak to that a little bit as well. But our testing process, you have to test both at a fabric level and at a garment level. So we have a test manual that outlines all of the standards that like the fabric has to meet first and foremost. If the fabric's not going to meet this test package, then we don't even try making a garment out of it. And that will be things like the tear strength. So how much force does it take to tear it, or how the tensile strength, how much strength does it have, in these directions, like within the plane. And then we may also look at what the dimensional stability is. So all of that fabric testing happens in a third-party lab. So we submit the fabric to SGS, and then we'll test it to our test package. And that's just on the fabric level. Then once we have a garment, we do the garment testing, all of that at Stio. So we will, first we put it out for wear testing, and we also do wash testing. And wash is just to see, like, once it's all sewn together, is there any concern with the construction? So, but that's, what we do, what our consumer is likely to do with the product, right? So take it out into the backcountry and throw it in a backpack and put it through your washer, just a standard washer. So there are some. The reason we use a third party is that it really standardizes the fabric testing. So they use a environmental like climate chamber. So it's always at the same relative humidity and temperature. And that's not something that we have at Stio. And then there's some very specialized testing equipment as well. So I've definitely done a lot of like garage lab testing myself. You can pretty easily test the breathability. You can do wash testing at home. You can do dimensional stability. You can do like dry rates and wicking. So there's a bunch that you can do in your own garage, but to standardize it, to really look at one fabric to the next, you want to send it to a third-party lab. So when we're looking at these alternative materials, we want to compare it to what we're currently using. So we'll go through the process of, testing the new material and then compare the test results, apples to apples to what we're currently using. And that's how we're, gives us the confidence that what we're making is going to be durable. Any other questions?
Okay. Well, if anyone has any more questions, yeah, you can still type them in. And I think that Phil Cameron had an announcement to make. So if you want to make your announcement, Phil, feel free.
Great. Thank you very much, Bailey. Thanks, everybody. Sandy, Aaron, great to see you all. And really appreciate all Bailey and Alicia's work bringing this new platform together. Two quick things I just wanted to add to those of you still on the call. Let me see if I can share these images quickly. Maybe we'll punt on that. Yeah, I'm just going to cancel on that. And you can reach out to us via the Facebook event or via our website. But two things we're really trying to advance right now. Every one of us who has a Lower Valley Energy account, a residential account, qualifies for a free home energy conservation kit. So if you go to lvenergy.com, there is an icon right in the middle of the landing page that you can click on and sign up for your free conservation kit. It includes about a dozen LED light bulbs that you can put right into play, some pretty fancy temperature sensitive shower heads, low flow shower heads that save on your domestic hot water heating footprint, and some sink aerators and some new things that we haven't done in the past, like smart power strips. So those are free. Lower Valley Energy customer can receive one. You sign up online and they'll deliver it to you via the U.S. Postal Service. So when you sign up, you have to indicate your physical address where your Lower Valley account serves, and then you'll have a second option to indicate your Postal Service mailing address. So if you haven't yet, please help us get up to 2,000 kits out the door. We're in between 1,500 and 2,000 right now. But that's a few thousand kilowatt hours on an annual basis that everybody can contribute to saving by deploying those things. So please do that. And then to any business owners that are on the call, we've certainly, Sandy, had some great conversations with Stio over the years with your green power commitment and some of the LED light projects that you've done. But if there are any other businesses on the call, or Sandy, if you guys have anything internally, Lower Valley Energy and ECW are currently partnering on a commercial auditing program where we are able to offset 75% of the audit costs. So this can be three different approaches where you have no baseline, you have no concept of where your best energy savings for your business are, and you want a comprehensive business audit. It can be very targeted for a specific piece of equipment that you need for your business to function, and that can be a simply a more efficient piece of equipment, or it can be a piece of equipment that reduces the energy output per unit of service you provide. So if you can find a piece of equipment that uses the same amount of energy as an existing one, but will allow you to double your production, your output, or something along those lines, we can evaluate that. And then for very large energy users, if you're a large commercial account, you're intimately familiar with what's called a demand charge. And this is a facility fee that is only applied to very large users who have like very large sudden loads, and we can specifically help target those demand charges through demand management of it. So really encourage businesses to reach out to us on the audit side. And then if you go through an audit successfully and you identify projects, you can take advantage of our 0% interest financing through Energy Conservation Works over a 5-year loan to pay those projects off. And then we layer in Lower Valley Energy rebates on top of that financing, and can help line you up with federal and state grant opportunities as well. If anyone has questions about those items, great. You can throw them in the chat right now, or the access via Facebook, websites, etc. is great as well. That is all.
Awesome. It looks like there was another comment in the chat for you, Erin.
Yes. Yeah, I think I just received a suggestion about Artisan, getting Artisan sort of folks together to make sure that their data is incorporated. But I'm going to follow up via email.
Cool. Yeah, if no one has any more questions, then I think that is all we have today. And it's a couple minutes till 1, so this will be ending soon anyways. But thank you guys all for joining us today. And thank you, Sandy and Erin, for presenting. That was awesome.
Thank you for coordinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Have a fun meeting, Haley.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Everyone have a good day.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.